Welcome, everyone. My name's Alisa Vitti. I'm the author of WomanCode, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm in the midst of my whirlwind book tour. I just got back from London, and I'm just excited about sharing WomanCode with women everywhere. So I'm thrilled to be here at Google, bringing WomanCode to Google. Very exciting. For me, I never really considered how important hormones were, right? And how hormones affect everything. Until my hormones stopped working properly. So I want you to picture me as I was a number of years back. I was over 200 pounds. I was covered face, chest, and back in extreme cystic acne. I was exhausted. I couldn't wake up in the morning. I couldn't go to sleep at night. It was a whole nightmare. And I wasn't getting my period, maybe once or twice a year. I was also at Johns Hopkins on my way to becoming an OBGYN when all of the hormonal stuff hit the fan. And it was in that moment where I was faced with, this whole future of obesity, diabetes, infertility, heart disease, cancer, that I realized that there was a different path. And in that moment with my doctor, once we finally, I was one night in the medical library and researching a little bit on what might I have, because I had gone 6 years without a diagnosis. And I finally figured out what it was that I had, which is a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome. How many of you know someone with that disorder? It's 1 out of 4 or 5 women have that disease. And it's a miscommunication between the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the ovary, and so you don't end up ovulating or menstruating. So I asked her, now what? Now that we know what we do after we had our doctor's visit. And she said, there's really nothing that we can do, but we can medicate you along the way for all of those problems that you'll be having. And I was a young woman, and I thought to myself, do I want to be on medication for the rest of my life for heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes and infertility? I mean, the medication roller coaster seemed endless. And that's when I decided to throw myself into functional medicine, because I had been privy to some really cool research at Hopkins about nutritional genomics and epigenetics. You guys remember the Human Genome Project? And what came out of that was a surprising discovery that there's this little ghost protein that wraps around your genes, and there are only 2 factors that influence its constriction or expansion, which then causes genes to express disease or health. And it's food and lifestyle. So of course it was very exciting to think about if we can express and manipulate gene expression on that microscopic level with food and lifestyle, what could we do with food on a systemic standpoint in the endocrine system? And so I began putting my protocol together, and as you can see, and I love especially sharing about the skin, because so many people with cystic acne, they end up taking things like Accutane and all of these things, and I have not done any of that. And to have 60 pounds come off of my body, to have my skin clear up, to be able to be having a period and ovulating normally for over, 12 years now, it's really remarkable, because every time I go to the gynecologist still, they're like, do you really not have PCOS anymore? And they do all the blood tests, they check everything out, and they're like, wow, we just have never thought that that was possible. So it's exciting that not only do I share this work with other women, but also I know firsthand the power of using food sequencing, which is the crux of my protocol, in terms of correcting hormonal issues. And this is why it's so important. Right now, unlike any other time we've seen before in women's health, we're kind of dealing with issues at an epidemic rate. Now, this number of 20 million women suffering from menstrual disorders, fertility issues, libido issues, energy issues, it's a low number. In fact, when I talk to my colleagues, they're always encouraging me to double or maybe triple the number. But safe to say that half of the women who are struggling are not talking about it. So it's easily upwards of 40 million women. In 2009, we had almost $2 billion being spent on assisted reproductive technologies, right, like IVF. How many of you know friends who are doing the IVF roller coaster, and it's multiple rounds and it's failing and it's distressing, right? And now there's some concern about what are the long-term repercussions of so much synthetic hormone stimulation during the IVF process on your overall health and well-being. So we're kind of not having the results that our bodies are capable of, right? We're designed to have healthy periods. We're designed to make babies if we want to. We're designed to have, in fact, we're designed to have a hotter sex drive as we age, unlike men who kind of peter off, pun intended, right? So we are supposed to be fantastic all of our lives, and you know, there is just this flood of issues. And you know, I think what's exciting for me, because I've been doing this work a long time, I've had a center in the city for over 10 years. What's exciting is now that it's more prominent in the media. You know, I love talking about the Kardashian sisters because we have been with them from their period problems to their pregnancy problems to their postpartum problems. And it really puts a nice lens on what so many women are dealing with. And everyone can identify with one of the issues that these women are going through. So it brings up something that's really, really interesting. So in 2009, the National Institute of Health published a very important body of research, and I wish I had t-shirts that I could wear that said, you know, I've read the biocycle study on the front, and on the back it says, have you, right? Because this is something that's like groundbreaking research for all women. And this biocycle study basically, with unequivocation, let us know that if you have any sort of menstrual disturbance in your 20s or 30s, something as simple as PMS, something that's like the butt of our jokes, right? Like, oh, I'm just that way half the month and it's just normal, right? How many of us sort of anticipate that that's the case, yeah? In fact, it can end up leading to the big 4 diseases of inflammation in your postmenopausal years, right? So something as harmless as we sort of jokingly think about PMS can end up increasing our likelihood for diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. So to me, that is something that I would want us to pay a lot of attention to, because the great news is you can completely change and affect how your body's performing from a hormonal standpoint by using food. So, like I was saying, hormones affect everything. How many of you connect the dots back to, you know, your hormones when you have a flare-up of acne or constipation or sleeplessness, or your mood is changing, or the way you're thinking about a project is changing? How many of you tie that back to your hormones, right? This is good. This is good. I'm going to give you even more granular level thinking on that. The problem that we have, you know, in the way that these issues are being approached is that the Western medical model has us treating symptoms, right? And really you should think of that as spot treating. You have a headache, you take an Advil. You have cramps, you take, what do you guys take for cramps? Midol, Advil, whatever you're taking, right? You have acne, you buy potions and lotions, maybe you try some internal medicine. And how many of you spend at least $100 on supplements a month, just trying things out? Okay, all right. And how many of you are trying supplements at all? Yeah, right? So, you know, we're always trying to spot treat what is going on with our hormones. And really, when I dove into the research that led me to the protocol that I designed, what I found from a functional medicine standpoint was that we actually have to treat the root causes. If we're going to allow the body to heal itself and resolve its issues on its own, which is exactly what the endocrine system is designed to do, we have to address the root causes. And I want to go over that with you today. What are the functions of the endocrine system? How do you interact with it with food so that whatever troubles you're having, from PMS to infertility to wanting to preserve your fertility for the next few years until you meet your partner, the partner of your dreams or what have you. I met mine at Google, isn't that funny? He's an ex-Googler. So, you know, you want to be prepared for that, hormonally speaking, right? And so we can do that using food. What's really cool, and since I'm at one of the coolest tech companies here, I just wanted to brag a little bit about my tech company. So I have been in clinical practice, as I mentioned, for over 10 years. And about a year and a half ago, I had a really exciting conversation with a couple of people. And I shared with them this big vision that I had, that, you know, women's hormonal health needs to be as prominent as something like Weight Watchers, for example, right? We need to have a tool, we need to have a system. So I went ahead and built the world's first online hormone improvement platform. So think of it like Rosetta Stone for your ovaries, right? You can log in and do the protocol because, you know, I was having women calling in from the UK, from Australia, from South America, from Europe, and we needed a way to serve all of them. So it's really cool. In in the past 2 years, we've seen so many women logging onto the system and from 6 continents, really getting the results that they want, and all through using the protocol. So women who've had, Emily, for example, this one of our clients, she was having 2 periods a month. Think about going on acting calls and having 2 periods a month, right? That's a lot, that's intense. And to be able to resolve that permanently with changing her diet. Or Lisa, who is someone who I just adore, her first pregnancy was through multiple rounds of IVF, after which she was suffering from severe postpartum depression, weight gain, and her underlying hormonal issues magnified. And she prepared her body for the next conception using the WomanCode protocol, and was able to get pregnant the first time without IVF, no postpartum depression. The child has a stronger immune system, and her pregnancy was much easier the second time around. So all food. Okay, I do have to brag one more little thing about the Dr. Oz show. How many of you saw the clip that I did on Dr. Oz? Anyone? Well, we will make it available to you. I made a little TV history actually recently. This is all around the book launch. And what I did on the Dr. Oz show was I wanted to share with his audience, with women everywhere, you know how he did the famous look before you flush for your poop? Remember that? I know, I'm going to say lots of bodily functions today, just bear with me. I know it's lunch, but we got to go with it. I just thought, one of the best ways for a woman to gauge how she's doing hormonally month over month is to actually take a look at her menses before she flushes, because the color and texture of that will actually tell you what's going on with your estrogen, what's going on with your progesterone. And I will admit, you ladies are faring much better than the Londoners. When I brought this up to the London crew, they were like, oh my God, she's talking about menstrual blood, that's horrible. But it's so important to know what the different colors and textures are. So there are 4 key ones, and I would love for you all to go and check that clip out and know, and spread the word to your friends, because not only in the short term does it have health implications, like for example, if you have low estrogen and your period looks a little light and thin, like strawberry jam, thinly spread strawberry jam, right? This is how we simulated these things on TV. I used fruit juices and little white dishes. It was very cool. That's not, we joke about that, like, oh, my period's so light and lucky me, right? But actually, you're now putting your bone density at risk, because estrogen protects bone density. That's in the short term. In the long term, it has other repercussions about the way that your ovaries age, the way that your body ages, and your long-term fertility. So looking and checking month over month, and that's just one of the 4. See, now aren't you curious to know the other 3? I'm not going to tell you. Okay, so the book just came out. It's really exciting, and I want to walk you through it as a way of introducing you to the protocol and how your body works. So let's start with the first part. The first part has to do with unlocking your WomanCode, right? Because there's this thing, right? If there was a code inside of your body that would give you access to feeling good all month, you'd want to crack the code, yeah? How many of you are computer programmers in here? Any hackers? That's so hot. Yes. So I'm a biohacker. I'm a hormone hacker. That's what I do, and I've figured out how to do this. I want to teach you how to hack. Okay. So here's the problem. The problem with accessing the code is that we're blocked in a lot of ways. And one of the first things that you have to do in establishing an environment inside of your body where your endocrine system can thrive is that you need to remove what I call FLO blockers, pun intended, right? We want to restore flow, not just your menstrual flow, but also your whole hormonal cascade, right? As I like to say, head to ovaries, right? So the first problem is, how many of you, if I asked you to get up on the whiteboard right now and draw me a 28 to 30 day monthly cycle with all 5 hormonal patterns, could do that for me? And she doesn't know what the 5th one is, I know. And don't worry, it's kind of a loaded question. I teach doctors all the time, surgeons, and they can't do it either, which says a lot, right? So we don't know what's going on, and that's just on the level of the period, but we also don't know what the parts are, what they're doing, how your thyroid's affected by how much sodium you're consuming during the day. We just don't know. So that's part of the issue. The other issue, as I mentioned earlier, is this paradigm in healthcare to spot treat symptoms is incorrect for systemic health issues, right? If it were just as simple as your wrist was broken and they put a cast on it, then that would be great. You can spot treat that issue. But because we're talking about all of these different glands and all of these different hormones, we need a whole system approach to get it right. And then the third thing, and this is really where you can get activated, and this is what one of the chapters of the book really goes into, so you have a manual for this, is removing endocrine disruptors. One of the reasons why we are seeing women at epidemic rates experience suffering around these issues in their health is because we are living in an environment that is flooding our bodies with something called xenoestrogens, which is just a fancy pants term for synthetic estrogens, strange external estrogen. And it adheres to our own estrogen receptor sites, and it starts to cause confusion in the hormonal conversation that our body's trying to have, and can make you estrogen dominant, which then causes all sorts of problems around your cycle and your fertility. So what can we do, right? First things first, you have to choose organic 80% of the time. Notice I'm not saying 100% of the time, I'm just saying 80%, especially when it comes to fruits, vegetables, and animal products. These are just the biggest offenders in terms of endocrine disruption that you can expose your body to. And if you are trying to lose weight, clear up your skin, preserve your fertility for the long term, fix PMS, get rid of the annoying, just doing this alone will make dramatic inroads into that progress. And then the second thing that you need to do is, and this is, I give a giant list in the book, you have to look at the lotions and potions you're putting on your skin. Your skin is your largest organ. It's also the largest organ of elimination. Anything that you put on your skin, you better be willing to take a tablespoon of it and eat it. That's always my litmus test. Would I, if under duress, eat this body lotion? I know that sounds silly, and I don't actually eat my body lotion, but if I needed to, I would feel comfortable doing it because it has like 3 or 4 ingredients in it, like olive oil, shea butter, vitamin E, right? If you have something from, I'm not going to name names, fancy lingerie stores that smell really perfumey and all of that, and you're putting it on your skin, there are so many chemicals in that lotion that that are known, FDA known endocrine disruptors that are ending up in your bloodstream and messing with that delicate chemical conversation of your hormones. Really, really essential you do an audit. Just audit your medicine cabinet, your bathroom products, from your shampoo to your makeup to your lotions, and see if there's a way for you to start slowly. Finish up what you've got. This does not need to be extreme. Finish up what you've got and start to slowly make some changes. Let me assure you, 15 years ago, Whole Foods did not have the wide array that it does today of fun products that you can try. But now there are so many fabulous skincare lines and makeup lines and body care lines that you can experience, and you should give those a try. I'm going to save questions for the end. Is that okay? Yep. But write them down because I'm totally into it. All right. So what do I want for you? I want you to get into a state of hormonal flow where you are in sync with your hormones every day, where you know how to manage your endocrine balance on a regular basis. So let's go into the protocol and share with you how that works. And this is sort of the second part of my book and accessing your code. So the first piece of the sequencing protocol, and I'm just going to load them all up for you, is blood sugar stabilization. And I'm going to go through each one and sort of share with you some of the fun science behind how this all works, because I think science is really hot, and the more I know about my body, the better I'm able to work with it. And I feel like all of you smart Google ladies are into data and science. Yes? Not afraid? Good. So that's the first thing. And it's so important because of the nature of which the endocrine system prefers to operate. And stabilization of blood sugar is the first place you have to go. If you go anywhere else, and this is one of the things that I talk a lot about in the book, is, how many of you detoxed, have done a cleanse, have done some sort of juice madness? That's great. I'm drinking a green juice, but I'm not on a cleanse. I just like to alkalinize my blood system. It's so important to appreciate that just doing a detox doesn't actually get your endocrine system to work better. It actually can make you feel worse. And it's because it's out of order. So second piece, all of you mentioned that you were exhausted And this is a state of adrenal fatigue. I'm going to show you what's happening with your adrenal gland in a moment of why that's happening to you and what you can do to restore it. One of the reasons why detoxing first is a problem for women who are dealing with these issues is they're typically all adrenally fatigued, right? You all have some experience of inappropriate cortisol levels. When you start doing cleanses, extreme cleanses, like the worst offender I think is the master cleanse, because you're living on lemon juice and cayenne pepper, and it's insane, and you're not really eating. You're further taxing adrenal function, making all of the problems more compounded. So it's even though it might be trendy and Gwyneth Paltrow's doing it and I love her, I just don't want you to do it first, okay? Because then in the third step of the protocol and the food sequencing piece, we then do focus in on metabolizing toxins and eliminating excess estrogen, and we do that in a very safe food-based way that doesn't cause you to feel any worse. And the last piece, which is my most exciting piece, especially when it comes to the world of work, is the hormonal synchronization piece. How do you live in cyclical harmony with the 4 distinct hormonal shifts that you experience in a 30-day period, right? Because they are changing the way you think, the way your body wants to exercise, the kind of sex you want to be having, how much sleep you need, what kinds of things you're naturally going to want to prioritize at work. They're affecting all of that. And knowing how to lean into that makes you healthier in the short term and also more successful in your life in the long term. And I'm, 10 years into living this lifestyle, so I can assure you, just last year, launching this platform, writing a book, planning my wedding, getting married, all of that, and looking and feeling great. Right? All of that is possible because I live in this constant state of forward vector motion. What's really cool about your cycle is that it's its own form of natural biotechnology, and we'll learn more about that as we go. But let me introduce you to one of my favorite people, your endocrine system. I have such a great relationship with her. She is extraordinary, and I want you to get to know her a little bit. And this is just a very basic rendering of how she operates. And we're just going to go through the parts, right? You have in your midbrain, hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Think of them like the person who listens to the voicemail and then the switchboard operator. Okay, hypothalamus is listening, scanning your bloodstream, negative biofeedback, really seeing what's the hormonal status quo right now in real time all the time. And the pituitary gland is sending out messages to all the other target glands of the endocrine system. Oh, we need more thyroid hormone. Oh, we need more adrenaline or cortisol. Oh, we need more of this or that, right? And that's your switchboard operator. Then you have your thyroid. Then you have the adrenals, the ovaries, the pancreas. I include some other things in here because from a functional medicine standpoint, we also want to consider how the body is detoxifying. So I include things like the liver and the kidneys and the heart as well, because it's all about keeping things moving. So let's talk a little bit about the first step of the protocol and how your blood sugar is operating. So how many of you woke up this morning and had a cup of coffee? And how many of you had that cup of coffee with nothing else just for the first hour and a half? Okay. And how many of you had the cup of coffee with something like a carb, I don't know, not a Pop-Tart, but something like that, toast or banana. Yep, fruits got sugar, yep. So basically what ends up happening to you is, in that you wake up in a state of hypoglycemia. So let's just define the terms. There's hyperglycemia, too much sugar in the blood, hypoglycemia, not enough sugar in the blood. You wake up in a state of hypoglycemia because you've slept for 8 hours, hopefully, and you haven't eaten unless you're hooked up to an IV feeding tube, which you're not. And so your blood sugar is low when you wake up. So if you put something that has too much sugar in your bloodstream in the morning, your blood sugar is going to spike. And caffeine, and I ask about the caffeine issue because it's the one thing that you do that changes your blood sugar destiny the rest of the day. If you do caffeine, here's what caffeine does. It indirectly has more sugar secreted into the bloodstream. Caffeine stimulates cortisol. Cortisol, we'll learn in a moment, talks to your fat cells and has those fat cells convert into glucose. So indirectly, it gets your blood sugar levels up. It also stimulates adrenaline. It also it actually prevents your body from breaking adrenaline down, is what caffeine does. So you feel the effects of it longer, and that's why you feel energized from coffee. And I put major quotations around that because it's not real energy, it's just adrenaline that you can't get rid of. So now your blood sugar's up, and no matter what you do the rest of the day, if you've done the caffeine the first thing in the morning like that, you will not get off this roller coaster. You will be chasing that first high all day long. So you'll crash mid-morning, and you'll feel like whoever's having a birthday and the cupcakes are around or whatever it is, you're gonna have more carbs than you would normally. By lunch, you're gonna be doing the same thing. You're gonna overindulge, and you're gonna be beating yourself up the whole time thinking, where's my willpower? I told myself I was gonna be good today. And there's no possible way. The brain chemistry will override you every time, because the first thing the endocrine system wants to protect is not your period, ironically. It's the sugar that's available to the brain, the heart, and the muscle tissue. If you do anything to mess with the sugar that's available for your brain, your heart, and your muscle tissue, you have no more say in the matter. Ghrelin will be secreted, all sorts of neurotransmitters will start to get in line to make you crave sugar. Because if you haven't put enough in, the brain's gonna freak out, and then all of a sudden it's going to try to bypass you, because clearly you have no idea what you're doing, according to the brain, right? So that's sort of a typical profile of what a lot of women are experiencing. And then even if you don't do caffeine in the morning, or you do it with food, or you have, let's say, something like half a bagel in the morning, or a muffin, or something that seems like reasonable, it's shooting up your blood sugar level no matter what. And then you're going to have insulin act on that. It's going to drop your blood sugar levels. It's going to go all over the place, right? So you're finding yourself less and less able to stay away from those afternoon cravings, right? How many of you feel like at 3:30 or 4 o'clock you feel awesome? Yeah, okay. Crickets, yeah. Okay, so, you know, I did a little experiment. I'm a researcher, and so I sat in a Starbucks for a couple of days, and I sat there all day. I was just working there, and I just sort of tracked the patterns. And I was like, my thesis was that we would see spikes in traffic at Starbucks during the times where people are stereotypically hypoglycemic, which is mid-morning and mid-afternoon. And let me tell you, the zombie-like march into a Starbucks at 3:30, from 3:30 to 4:30, it is insane. Don't even go to try and buy coffee at that time. You will wait for like 25 minutes to get a cup of coffee. And it's not just the coffee, you're also then like, oh, well, this little sweet thing only has 180 calories, and that seems reasonable. So you're having more sugar than you would normally because your body is requesting it. And so this is a big problem. Also, any of you ever driving in a car and see someone with road rage? Road rage is hypoglycemia. That's all. If you see someone with road rage, or even on the subway, give them like a bar, like a Larabar. You just fix them right away. What we want to see is blood sugar that's hugging the stasis line much more closely. And you get there by modifying concentrations of macronutrients during breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we help women figure out what do they need in each meal based on their body's response to carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and extreme sugars, right? So how much can you tolerate? How much can you tolerate such that you're only undulating around the line versus spiking and dipping around the line? And for someone who used to struggle with weight as a result of my hormonal issues, just clearing this up alone takes care of any sort of stubborn weight issues that you may be having. So it's really, really exciting to know that you can just eat to be thin, which is really fun, because I like to eat. Food is delicious. If you don't get the blood sugar right, it starts to throw off that chemical conversation in a long-term way. So in the short term, right, we know that it affects the brain, the heart, and the muscle tissue, and starts to have you secrete all sorts of neurotransmitters that get you excited to eat sugar, right, and zap your willpower. I mean, willpower doesn't really exist in a neurochemical standpoint, so I don't really think to try to use that. I would rather you leverage your hormones instead, because they're much more powerful than your thoughts in a lot of ways. But over time, if you continue to have this blood sugar roller coaster, it's going to affect your liver, it's going to affect your pancreatic response, it's going to affect your thyroid, it's going to affect your adrenals, and it's going to clog up the pathways of elimination. And I'm going to share more about that now. So let's, of course, at the end of all of this, right, how is it causing you to pay attention to it, because you may not notice these discrete symptoms of your adrenals being off or your thyroid being off or things of this nature, although in the book I teach you how to observe these things in the body in real time. But how you'll notice it over time is that all of a sudden your period will be funky, right? You'll have a big heavy period, or you'll have clots, or you'll have major cramping, or you'll have PMS that just rocks you, and takes you out of your life for a day or two, which is not normal. And by the time you get to observing a symptom like that, do you appreciate now the mountain of chemical imbalance that has been persisting for a period of time? No hormonal symptom from a menstrual standpoint, a fertility standpoint, low energy, low sex drive, just happens out of the blue. Never. Never. It doesn't just happen to you. It comes through improper management of the food that's affecting these things that we're talking about in the food sequencing, that then causes an environment for all of this to start to break down. Make sense? Okay, so let's look at the adrenals. This is so much fun. I love cross sections of glands. Okay, so there are, I'm such a science nerd, but you wear cute jewelry anyway, it's fine. So the adrenal gland, so powerful, located in your mid-back. Do you all know where your adrenal glands are? Now you do. Over here, right here, okay. And they are nestled in with the kidneys, really powerful gland. In fact, the innermost part, the medulla, forms at the same time in utero as the brain and the spinal cord. It's a primitive extension of the brain, in fact. The cortex, which is what we're going to talk about, the three outermost zones, are essential for your life. And unlike the brain, the adrenal gland does not adapt. Not happening. Doesn't adapt to stress, doesn't adapt to your diet. It does not like it if you do things that make it unhappy, and it will start to affect you in very profound ways. Now, I'm not going to get into the zona glomerulosa, fasciculate, all these wonderful Latin names that won't make any sense to you. But what I am going to tell you about is this relationship between cortisol and DHEA. So if you notice the two innermost zones, the blue and the pink, the blue is the zone that produces cortisol. The pink is the zone that produces DHEA. When you have stress, okay, let's say you're on a deadline or you're running late to an event or something like that, you get a little boost of cortisol. Why? Why does this happen to us? Well, cortisol has a special relationship with your butt. How many of you have a special relationship with your butt? Just your adrenal glands do, I know. So it talks to the fat cells that are stored in whatever body part that tends to store your fat. But for women, it's usually our hips, butt, and thighs, right? That's typically where we tend to store fat. And cortisol tells those fat cells, hey, something's happening. We don't know what it is because it's not the whole brain. It's just sort of a primitive part of responding to external factors. Can you please convert some of that fat to glucose? Because what is fat? Fat is just long-term storage of sugar. That's all that it is, right? So cortisol reverses the process, gets it into the bloodstream, and all of a sudden you have a little bit of extra energy for the brain, the heart, and the muscle tissue to respond to the external stress. Make sense, right? Now, that's cool once in a blue moon. That's cool if, all of a sudden you have to catch the train, and if you don't catch the train, you're going to miss your plane, and that's really great. But it's not great if this is happening to you all day long, and here's why. It has a suppressive effect on DHEA. The more cortisol that your adrenal gland secretes, the less DHEA you will produce. And DHEA is the mother hormone from which, for women, 90% of your testosterone is manufactured. So any of you who are feeling like you can't build up muscle mass though you are working out, you still feel like soft and flabby, right? You go to flex and nothing's there, but you've been doing push-ups. Is this happening to people? Yes? If you're all adrenally fatigued, it is happening to you, right? If you feel like you just don't have the same stamina for running around and doing things in your life, this is what's happening, okay? Cortisol up, DHEA levels down. If your sex response and drive is kind of like, meh, this is what's happening here, okay? And you know what I mean by meh. So what should it look like? On a normal, healthy person without any level of adrenal fatigue, you get a nice surge of cortisol in the morning, okay, to wake you up. Like how is it that we stay asleep all night and then all of a sudden, magically in the morning we wake up? It is not the alarm clock, people, although that does help. But if you want to do an experiment, like I don't use an alarm clock, I just tell myself before I sleep what time I'd like to wake up, and then I just do, right? Why? That's a whole other fun conversation. But my adrenal glands support the ability of my body to wake up at the right time in the morning, right? Because again, cortisol surging at this time is doing what? Talking to your long-term sugar storage, AKA your fat, getting some of that to convert into sugar to help your brain, heart, muscle tissue go through metabolic changes to feel like they can be awake. That's what's happening in the morning. And then you get another surge midday, you get a little bit in the afternoon, and it starts to taper off dramatically so that you can wind down and go to sleep. Now, how many of you feel like when you wake up, you kind of feel a little hungover, like groggy, even though you have not been drinking? I know you're all not drinking every night, but you wake up and you're like, oh, God, help me. This feeling, this is like a normal feeling. We're all laughing. Okay, here's what's happening. You're having adrenal fatigue, okay? So instead of having that nice surge of cortisol helping you wake up with joy and vigor in the morning, which is how you should feel. Remember when you were a kid, you were like, I'm up! Somebody else wake up! Oh my God, right? That's how it should be every day still. But that's not happening, right? Instead, we get not enough cortisol secreted in the morning. We feel a little bit like we're dragging. Even though we're doing caffeine, still we don't feel the same surge of energy, right? How many of you had the caffeine this morning and felt like you were 5 and it was Christmas morning? Right? No, it is not giving you the return on your investment that you would like it to. Okay. And then you maybe get a little bit more around the midday, but you start to get your big surge in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening, even as late as 10 o'clock. How many of you feel like you're night owls? And you wake up like truly after dinner. And you're like, gosh, I should just do all my work in the middle of the night. That's super cool. I'm like not someone who's a conformist. I'm gonna be in the middle of the night doing all my work. No. This is just an indication that your adrenal glands are not performing the way that they should. There are 4 different degrees of adrenal fatigue. This I would say is about stage 2. There are stage 3 and stage 4 include other things like major anxiety response at inappropriate times, even panic attacks for no appropriate reason. That type of a thing can accompany heart palpitations, sweating. It gets much, much worse. And because think about it, we're talking about cortisol, we're talking about adrenaline, we're talking about DHA, we're talking about this gland that governs a lot of the functions of your response. And it's hard to pinpoint because it can be lumped in, the symptoms can be lumped in with other things, right? Because you'll feel generally tired, so maybe you'll think it's a thyroid problem. Or you'll have maybe reduced immunity and you think, oh, it's just flu season. But actually, when adrenal is underperforming, you are much more likely to catch everybody's cold, okay? So there's all of this poor digestion, improper elimination. All of this can be affected by adrenal fatigue. So it's really, really important that we get the hang of it. And depression and anxiety, such a big problem for so many women. We go through monthly bouts of this if we're hormonally imbalanced, but with adrenal fatigue on top of it, the issue is compounded in multiples, right? So if you're struggling with a feeling of, not feeling yourself or feeling anxiety or feeling like continuous worrisome thoughts, we should look at what's happening with your adrenals and eat for adrenal happiness. Okay, third piece of the food sequencing protocol has to do with your pathways of elimination, okay? And you have 4 of them, and all of them work in synergy to help you break down hormonal toxins, especially estrogen. Think about it this way. Imagine if you were producing adrenaline, right, in the morning, and then you weren't able to break that down and get that out of your body. How would you feel? You feel a little all day, right? You'd feel a little anxious, okay? And estrogen, this happens to so many women. You're producing estrogen on a continuous basis. That's your body's job, right? Is your ovaries are producing estrogen. This is what it's supposed to be doing. If you're not breaking that down, estrogen is one of those hormones that's like a double-edged sword. Just the right amount makes you look and feel fantastic. Too much or too little is very problematic in different ways, right? So if you have too much estrogen, it's not breaking down, this can cause all sorts of problems in terms of your hormonal health, right? From weight gain to fibrocystic breasts to increased risk for cancer, to PMS, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cyst development, all of this. Very serious stuff. And what's interesting when we think about how they work together is that, and the reason why they're organized in this way is because this is sort of decreasing magnitude, right? So the skin is your largest organ. That's why it's so important that you make the choice not to put things on your skin that are going to you're already dealing with estrogen dominance because we live in 2013 and this is the state that the environment is polluted with so much xenoestrogen that evidently fish which develop their gender outside of the mother's reproductive system are all turning into female fish in the rivers because a lot of women are taking birth control pills and that's ending up in our water supply, and there's chemicals and pesticides. It is happening. So we are flooded with too much estrogen, and so we just don't want to put any more on ourselves that we don't have to. The liver, I'm going to talk about in a moment, but has a special relationship with your large intestine. How many of you, we're going to talk about poop for one more time. Okay, you cool? You cool with poop? Okay, good. I'm so cool with it. Here's the thing. How many of you feel like you go to the bathroom every day, no problem? Put your hands up. Everybody keep your hands up until this no longer applies to you, okay? How many of you wake up and go to the bathroom kind of, relatively before noon, okay? How many of you have that happen within 90 minutes of opening your eyeballs, have a bowel movement? 90 minutes. How many of you have that within 20 minutes? Great, awesome. That's where you should be. You wake up, and oh wait, one last check. You have that 20 minutes, no caffeine. Awesome, awesome. Okay, good. So how it should work is eyeballs open, glass of water, brush your teeth, bowel movement. 20 minutes. Okay. If that's not happening, you're struggling with a level of constipation. And why that's important is it's indicating now if the large intestine is the smallest place that we have elimination of estrogen. Can you imagine the backup that it's going to cause in the liver, in the lymphatic system, on the skin? Constipation for sure will lead to skin problems, and a lot of women are struggling with rosacea and eczema and acne, and all of this is a sign that the liver, the large intestine, the lymph are overloaded with toxins, and that you need to change not what you're putting on your skin to spot treat the eczema, the rosacea, right? We talked about this, no more spot treating. We want to start cleaning up liver, large intestine function. So let's look at the liver, and I want to break down the pathways of elimination for you, okay? This is super cool because this really shows the importance of what you're eating. Your liver has these two phases of detoxification. The first phase basically breaks your hormones down into fat-soluble, more toxic forms of the hormone than it was originally. The second phase converts it into a water-soluble, less toxic form that can leave your body safely through the urine, the sweat, the bowel movement. Okay, so the skin, the lymphatic system, the large intestine are going to be the transport systems for this waste product. What is required to be on tap in your liver, stored in your liver at all times, are key micronutrients to support in phase 1 and phase 2 of this detoxification. So these are things like B vitamins, vitamin C, selenium, glutathione. I want to focus in a little bit on selenium and glutathione because they're kind of fun. So how many of you remember the whole story of like the sperm and the egg, and when they come together, it makes a life, da da da? Okay. Do you know why that happens? This is so cool. I mean, this is a little off topic, but everybody needs to know. It's selenium and glutathione. It actually is such an important chemical catalytic reaction. Selenium is stored in the sperm in high concentration. Glutathione in the egg in high concentration. When they come together, it's the selenium and the glutathione that react in a catalytic way that starts the cell dividing. Isn't that so amazing? And it's because of what you were eating. You cannot supplement as effectively with selenium and glutathione versus other supplements. Like we know vitamin C supplements are recognized by the body. Glutathione, we haven't been able to manufacture a synthetic form that's bioavailable. You have to eat it. And if it's not present in adequate supply for your liver and you're noticing little breakouts, what's happening with your egg quality? right? So we're thinking about preserving our fertility for the long term. We have to be thinking about all the ways in which this is interconnected. Do you understand? So how do we get glutathione? How do we get selenium? Selenium's easy. 2 to 4 Brazil nuts a day, you're set. That's rich supply of selenium. This is good for your partners if they're men and they're working on sperm quality, motility, health, whatever. Great to have them be eating Brazil nuts. Glutathione, lucky us, is found in every organic raw fruit and vegetable. It's in everything. So if you were to have something like 1 green juice a day at any point, doesn't have to be during a fast or anything, or some steamed or raw veggies, or some good quality fruits, right? You're going to be dosing yourself with this essential micronutrient that not only is talking about preserving egg quality, but also helping your liver do its job. Because if we don't have adequate supply, remember in phase 1 it breaks the hormones down into a more toxic form, that ends up circulating in your body if it's not broken down properly. And it can make your liver less perform inappropriately, right? And have you store more sugar as fat in the liver and not break down hormones the way that you want. So it's so important to eat for all these organs. I know it might seem overwhelming, but trust me, it's so easy once you put it all together. Okay, so I want to kind of go into the last piece of the protocol here, and then I'm going to open it up to some questions. The really interesting thing that I found when I was doing all of my research in functional medicine and nutritional genomics and looking at all sorts of interesting things like chronobiology, which is the study of the circadian patterns of different organ systems in the body, is that I thought, wow, isn't it interesting that no one is looking at the pattern of the menstrual cycle and mapping food onto that? Because we can map, you know, for example, the adrenals really love salt in the morning, really don't like it at night. Right? They like potassium at night. So drinking a little coconut water at the end of the day can be a way to help your adrenals release and relax from a cortisol overdose, right? So there's food that maps onto our different organ circadian patterns, but no one was looking at that for the cycle. So this is my big contribution, is how do we eat to be in cyclical harmony? Because the reality is, and I just want to break down, you have these 4 phases in case you didn't know, because most of us know the obvious one, the menses, and we might know the PMS, but we don't know what that's called. It's called the luteal phase, but let's go in order. Starts with the follicular phase, okay? Eggs developing, multiple little cysts on the level of the ovary, okay? Then you move into the ovulatory phase. One of the eggs leaves the ovary, boom, boom, and then we're in the luteal phase. There's 2 distinct parts to the luteal phase, which I'll show you in a moment, and then of course there's the menses. Those are your 4 phases. Happens to you whether you're observing them or not, but I'd like for you to be able to start observing them in real time, because most of us don't know. How many of you know when you're ovulating? Yeah, like 2% of you, okay. And how many of you know, most of us only know when we start menstruating, right? Because we can see it, it's like obvious, and you need to get products, and that's when we pay attention. But what's really cool is, remember how I was going to ask someone to come up and draw this chart, right? Here's the chart. 5 hormones. The hormone that I don't have present here just because we like to layer it in after, so you can see these first 4, is testosterone. You have testosterone patterns that fluctuate as well, that affect your stamina at the gym, your sexual desire, preferences, all of that throughout the month, and they are absolutely mapped onto the cycle. Let's just break down the luteal phase for a minute. And I go into such granular detail about all the little parts of your cycle in the book. I cannot wait for you to get your hands on it. But in the luteal phase, you have 2 halves. You have the build half, which is indicated by the rise in the purple and the green lines on the chart from day, let's say, 18 up to 24, okay? And this is both estrogen and progesterone rising. Why? Right? Estrogen's thickening the lining of the uterus, progesterone's holding it in place, okay? Then, if there is no conception, what happens? Both of these hormones start to drop off. And progesterone and estrogen start to diminish, and the lining is able to leave the body, okay? And that's when menstruation starts. There are 2 distinct halves of this because I want you to pay attention to how you feel. Most women still feel perfectly fine. They still feel like they're in their post-ovulatory glow, the first half of the luteal phase. Their energy's good. There's a little surge of testosterone here, so we're feeling energized and able to do everything. The second half of the month, depending on how far apart estrogen and progesterone are on this chart, right, from each other, is the degree to which you will suffer with PMS. So for example, if estrogen was very high and progesterone was much lower than what you're seeing here, then you're going to have cramps and bloating and breast tenderness and mood swings and all of that, okay? And if prior to that, progesterone levels are not adequate, this is where it becomes difficult to even get pregnant. So if you're thinking about trying to make a baby, right, you have to know where you are hormonally in each phase of your cycle so that you can do that more successfully. Now here's where it gets cool. In the book, there are several different charts that map out for you each of these phases so that you can start to plan your food, your exercise, your priorities, and your sex life around where you are hormonally. Because these distinct hormonal patterns, right, this is happening to your brain. Estrogen is flooding your brain at different times of the month, progesterone, all of these things are changing your brain chemistry, and it makes a lot of sense that you would feel differently week over week, right? Because you know intuitively that you already do, right? How many of you, for example, first half of the month, you go into a boot camp class at the gym and you crush it. You walk out of there like, eye of the tiger, it's awesome, right? That happens. Then same class, same you, same Lululemon pants, and you go to the same thing 2 weeks later, and you are like, oh God, make it stop. When is this class over? And you're thinking to yourself, what's wrong with me? It's not you. It's where you are in your cycle, and you're in the wrong class for that time of your cycle. In fact, if you're dealing with adrenal issues and you overdo it with the exercise at different times of the month, you can actually make yourself gain weight. How many of you have had any girlfriends who've trained for a marathon or a triathlon and they've put on 20 pounds from doing that? I see this all the time in my practice. This has to do with adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalance, and over-exercising at the wrong time of the month. It's amazing what you can do with a lot less effort and strain on the body if you lean into your hormonal natural rhythms that are happening. So I wanted to give you a taste of sort of the priorities of how your brain is shifting, your neurochemical shifts, so that you might start to apply those in your work life. Because my whole company runs on this cycle. Actually, we call it a form of embodied time management. Again, it's a natural form of biotechnology that's governing the way your body performs, so you might as well use it to your benefit, right? So during the follicular phase, this is when the brain is getting initial doses of estrogen, and your brain's starting to think of it like popcorn of ideas, right? You're like, oh, this would be interesting to do, or this might be an interesting way to tackle this project that I want to get done this month. This is a great time during your let's say, month of working to plan projects, to map out your Gantt chart, to do anything that you need to do to set yourself up for success for the month, okay? In the ovulatory phase, because of the flood of estrogen on the brain, you're much more communicative and social and magnetic at this time. This is a great time to work in collaboration with people in your team, to set up strategic meetings, to ask for a raise, to go on first dates or second dates or have important conversations. It would be easier for you to do it at this time. You can do it any time of the month, of course, but this is when you will be it will feel effortless to you, okay? In the luteal phase, the effects of progesterone and estrogen on the brain in conjunction have like a getting things done kind of an effect. So I always sort of tease women and I say, okay, remember how you've told yourself to like do your laundry 2 weeks ago and you just cannot get it done, but then all of a sudden something happens, you don't register as it moving into your luteal phase, and then you just want to like organize your shoe closet and your bills and do your accounting and write thank you letters to people, and you're just like banging things out, getting things done. This is naturally happening to you in the luteal phase from a neurochemical standpoint. So lean into that, right? If you have to get things done on a project basis anyway at work, why not try to leave some time in your schedule during these weeks, these 10 days, to have project time, right? Don't overschedule yourself. Make sure you give yourself 3 hours a day to like get things done and crank things out. You will feel so much more on top of your projects if you do this. Then during menstruation, what's happening to the brain chemistry has you actually having the maximum amount of communication across the corpus callosum, which is the bundle of nerve fibers that connect the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. Okay? So this means you're synthesizing data from the right and the left hemisphere in ways that you don't the rest of the month. So this is actually a time to do evaluation, right? Whether that be evaluating people on your team, if that's your role, or evaluating your own project performance that month, or evaluating how you're doing in your life. Like, how's your relationship going? Are you really happy in your relationship, or are you just tolerating it? We all do that, unfortunately, right? Are you really happy with what you're doing in your job? Are you moving forward the way that you want to? Now think about a bicycle versus someone walking, right? Put two people on the same path, one's on a bike, one's walking. Who's gonna get to the finish line faster? Bike rider, yes? And it has to do with forward vector motion of the wheels. So imagine just doing this for 1 month, how much you would get done, how far you would accomplish what you need to do. Then project that out 1 quarter, half a year, a whole year, how much more progress you would make by leveraging your hormonal patterns versus not working with them. It is kind of like trying to turn a television on with a remote control that only has 1 battery. You wouldn't even dream of having their TV turn on, right? But we try as women to operate not using this technology that's available to us, that is having a real influence on our brain chemistry, our physical sensations, our moods, our energy, our stamina. And because we're not using it, we are inadvertently working against it from an endocrine system standpoint, and it's taxing our hormonal function. So we feel more adrenally fatigued. Our period problems become amplified. Women are dealing with premature ovarian failure. They're not getting pregnant. Their sex drive is going away in their early 30s. Why is this? It's not just the chemicals in the food and in the environment. It also has to do with how we're not partnering with our bodies. So important to think about how you can get into cyclical harmony. In the last section of the book, I talk all about my favorite foods, and I just wanted to share some of the favorite foods that you can start taking away from today to address some of the issues that you might be dealing with. So if you're dealing with any sort of PMS or period problems, this would be the list that I would give you to start with, in addition to taking on the food sequencing that we talked about. First thing that I could say, the most important thing is to eliminate soy products. I have the word reduce on the slide, but I would highly encourage you, if you're dealing with fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, PMS, ovarian cysts, heavy bleeding, to eliminate soy. Soy has high concentrations of estrogen, especially if it's not organic GMO-free soy. There was a study done in Brazil on GMO soy and its effects on both male and female rats' reproductive system. Poor rats, they had to eat all that soy. And what they found was actually that the GMO soy changed the uterine structure in the female rats, changed the shape of the uterus in the females. So, and what's really exciting about what's going on with the whole genomic research and food, we actually now can look in a laboratory setting at your biome, right, your human genome, plant genomes, the foods you're eating, and the intestinal microbiome that you have, and how they're interacting with each other. They're changing each other. These genes are, the vegetable that you ate has genetic material. It's mixing with yours, right? And the bacteria that you have in your gut is mixing with your genes. So you need to learn how to partner with that whole process, otherwise it's going to kind of run your life. Definitely want to get you more on kale. Kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. These cruciferous vegetables contain substances that help the body break down estrogen. They also are rich in magnesium and calcium, which helps during the PMS phase if you're struggling with that. And then, of course, this is one of my favorite juices for women who are having cycle issues. And it's just a good cover for blood building, for liver detoxification, and for circulation. So you can get this recipe and try it at home, make your own juice. It's really, really great. Let's say you are thinking about having a child at some point in the future, and you'd like to preserve your fertility, make sure your egg quality is good, make sure ovulation is strong. These are some things that you can try. Turmeric has been shown to improve the vascular health of the ovary. Cinnamon actually reduces insulin levels, which help keep ovulation healthy. Avocado, one of the studies I cite in the book, avocado should be a poster on every IVF doctor's office, because we now know, lab tested, women who go through IVF and eat 3 avocados a week versus women who don't eat any avocados have a 3.5 greater successful outcome with IVF than the women who are not increasing levels of essential fatty acids. Why? Hormones are all stabilized in fat. And women on our no-fat, low-fat diets are doing ourselves a huge disservice for hormonal health and long-term fertility optimization by not eating good sources of fat. So eat your avocados. In terms of energy and sex drive, a lot of this has to do with your adrenal health. So there are a couple of things that I would have you do immediately. Get off the caffeine because we know it overstimulates the adrenal. Not even green tea, not even decaf, nothing. For a couple months. By the way, the whole protocol takes 3 months to do, so don't think this has to be like a forever thing. But if you want to get your body kickstarted to healing, give your body a break. And the summertime is very easy to go off caffeine because it's hot. You don't really, you'll want colder things anyway, so try it now. Get on a B vitamin. A B100 complex will contain adequate levels of B12, B6, and B5, which the adrenal glands need to perform. And I would say, if you're really struggling with adrenal fatigue and some of the things that I talked about with weight and energy levels resounded with you, I would definitely exercise no more than 20 minutes at a time at the gym. After that, you're burning your adrenal reserve and you're causing more spikes in cortisol and you're making the problem worse. So this will, of course, continue to keep you in that vicious cycle of low energy, and when there's no energy, there is no reserve for sex drive, right? So if you want to bring sexy back, it's not Justin Timberlake, it's B vitamins. Okay, although he's so cute. Connect with us. We are a whole community of women who are living in the WomanCode way. We are all in flow with our hormonal health. Find us on Facebook. There's a weekly video series that we have. That's me talking, so if you enjoyed me talking, you'll see more of me. They're all under 5 minutes, and it's really about, how can you be troubleshooting in real time all the issues that you're dealing with. And connect with us. I want to hear how you're doing. So I want to open it up to you. Little ovary town hall. What are some questions that you have? What are some things that you heard that you have some deeper dive desires around? And how can I support your cycle, your fertility, your sex drive? Lay it on me, girls. Yes.
So you mentioned with the different parts of your cycle, like there are things that you should focus on more because that will kind of work with where your cycles are.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say if you had to schedule yourself some kind of medical procedure or surgery or something? Where in your cycle would you best do that?
Depends on the procedure, but ideally around the ovulation time, where you have a little bit extra testosterone, so a little bit more stamina and energy to bounce back more quickly. And also because as you lead up to menstruation, how many of you have ever gone to the dentist right before your period and noticed that your gums bleed a lot more? You just have more you have more of that potential for happening. So you have more bleeding happening, less coagulation leading up to that. So I would schedule it more towards the first half of the month if you can. Great question. Yes?
So I've heard two things. So one, that cortisol, it increases fat, it makes fat deposit, but it seems like in this case it actually signals the burning of fat. And I also heard that caffeine helps stimulate the metabolism, and both of those things seem like they conflict.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts there?
It brings up an important point. Every magazine you read every month, isn't it annoying? There's do this, now do this. And by the way, we're just saying do the opposite of what we said last month, right? So this is some of the things that this makes me feel reminded of. But when we're talking about a woman who's struggling with menstrual issues, fertility issues, low energy, low libido issues, adrenal fatigue is happening, period, pun intended. So we know that for a woman who's got these issues, that caffeine is going to have an adverse effect on her. It's not going to stimulate her metabolism. In fact, how it works on the blood sugar level is cortisol is going to get the fat out from the fat stores into the bloodstream, but then the pancreas is going to be hyper responsive, secrete lots of insulin to try to restore it. So that's how indirectly you end up with more fatty deposits because you have too much cortisol being produced. So again, because caffeine is triggering that for women who are adrenally fatigued and who are struggling with these issues, it causes a vicious cycle from an endocrine function standpoint. Now, for some people who, let's say, are in their perimenopausal years, postmenopausal years, caffeine can be a beneficial tool. But for a lot of women who are in their reproductive years, I don't find this to be great advice. And unfortunately, a lot of, and I was on the Dr. Oz show and all of this, right? A lot of these shows are being watched by women who are over 50. And so a lot of the topics are being geared towards that demographic, which is great. They need support too. But I'm really interested in women who are still in their reproductive years, because what you do in your 20s and 30s will completely dictate your hormonal destiny, your whole entire health destiny in your 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond. So I want you to take your period seriously for sure. More questions? Great question. You had a question.
Yeah. Well, one of them you answered, because I was going to ask about soy.
Good.
The other one was about what we put on our skin.
Yes.
So, spray tans. All chemicals.
Oh,
right?
Great question. No one has asked me that question before.
I'm trying to like stay out of the sun and be good to my skin. And I wear SPF 50 on my face every day
Great.
now. But I don't like looking pale in the summer, so I've been doing like the occasional spray tan here and there, even though I know that's probably not great either.
Yeah, here would be my recommendation. If you really are limiting it to 2 months out of the year, I would say that's okay. I personally would never put that chemical on my skin, any kind of self-tanner.
Okay, the two self-tanning lotions.
Just because it affects melatonin. That's how it works. And melatonin is a really powerful hormone. In fact, it's so powerful that you cannot get it without a prescription outside of this country. In Europe, if you want to take melatonin to help you with your sleep, you have to have a doctor write you a prescription for it. Here, we just go buy it and we take massive doses of this. And that's a whole other conversation. But I would not use that. I would, however, if you are going to use it, and that's a personal choice, again, I'm only asking you to be good on protocol 80% of the time. Because if you have an environment where 80% of the time you're strengthening your endocrine response, the 20% of your life where you make choices like you're going to have a night of drinking, you're going to have the spray tan, you're going to have whatever food on vacation you're going to have, your body can bounce back from that. Any ratio different than that, where you're at like 70, 60% on, your body can't respond as quickly and you start to get into symptoms much, much faster.
What about?
So make choices. If the rest of you is like hormonally golden, fabulous, you're humming along and everything's great, then 2 months of, I would rather you do the self-tanner just because I would rather you not risk the aerosol exposure of the whole way that that's delivered. You're breathing it in, it's a whole other thing. I would rather you do spray tan.
Which one?
I'm sorry, self-tanner cream than the spray tan. And I would also rather you do it small amounts of the year.
Okay, and then what about, I've heard that there's organic spray tan out there. Have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of it, but I would check out self-tanners at Whole Foods. I haven't looked because I prefer to glow in the dark and I don't tan at all. But check it out and see. Certainly the organic self-tanners are going to have the surrounding cocktail, the recipe that the lotion is not going to have parabens and petrolatum and other chemicals that are known endocrine disruptors. So if it does exist, 100,000% do that. Yeah, great question. Yes.
A lot of what you talked about assumes that you're not regulating your cycle with birth control pills, right? So you mentioned in the
Not
beginning-
true, but go ahead, keep going.
Well, my question is, what if you're on the pill, and you kind of touched upon at the beginning about going off the pill?
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's lots of conversation about the pill in the book, and I can go on and on and on. But essentially, you're still having hormonal cycles if you're on the pill. If you're having symptoms, and many women do still have symptoms of hormonal issues on the pill, and if you have adrenal fatigue, and if you're constipated, and you're having other things going on, and you're on the pill, the best thing for you to do is to start getting on the protocol. Because if you then identify that or if you now realize that you have an underlying hormonal imbalance for which you decided to take the pill, right? And the pill for these issues that we're talking about, think of it like putting masking tape over the indicator light on your car, right? It's blinking at you to try to get you to pay attention, change the oil, something's wrong, refill at the next station, something like that. And being on the pill prevents you from really paying attention in real time. But if over time these symptoms start building and it's undeniable that you have some hormonal stuff that needs addressed, get on protocol, and then you can work with your doctor. We have so many women who do this, who then end up taking a little birth control pill vacation, right? You do the protocol for 3 months, then you take 3 months off the pill and reassess, how is your hormonal performance? Are you now healthy and hormonally balanced? If so, your choice, go back on the pill, no problem. If you get off the pill and you're still struggling with symptoms, there's more work for you to do nutritionally. You may need another month or two. But it is so essential in your 20s and 30s to resolve those issues now. Because what I don't want to see is what I see often, far too often at my center. Women have been on the pill for 15, 20 years with hormonal imbalances from their teens and early 20s, fibroids, endo, cramps, whatever, PCOS, even PMS. And then they find their partner, they want to have a baby, they're pushing 40, and now all of a sudden you go off the pill and you have a reduced amount of time to correct these issues, and your stress levels are high because you feel the pressure of all that. So don't do that to yourself, right? Meaning you now have some important information that I know isn't being discussed on a regular basis unless I'm here, and I'm happy to be here, but share it with your girlfriends. You know, hand them a copy of the book, let them know, like, hey, this is really, really important that you understand and appreciate what your period is actually telling you now about your fertility in the future. Yes?
So going back, instead of having coffee and a bagel in the morning.
Is this what you have for breakfast?
No,
Okay.
actually I was like eating dinner foods for breakfast.
Dinner foods for breakfast
Yeah,
are
I was,
ideal.
like, I was like eating salty stuff or leftovers from dinner. So, like, what do you recommend eating then first thing in the morning to set yourself up? Right?
Depends on your body's metabolism. That's why step one of our process on the online platform is metabolic testing, so that you know exactly what your body needs, you know, carbohydrates, fats, protein, sugar in the morning, salt, right? And you know what works for you and what doesn't work. We also teach you how to track which foods are working for you best and which are not. So we do all sorts of fun food experiments. But, you know, ideally, and it changes week over week where you are in the cycle. And I lay this all out for you, you know, how you can start your own experiment on your own at home based on where you are in your cycle, what kinds of breakfast, lunches, and dinners you would have hormonally optimizing yourself. More questions. I'll take 2 more before we wrap. You have a question. You've been looking at me soulfully all day. Tell me.
No, I was just curious. So, I'm curious to know, like, what you use on your skin.
Yes, I just did a vlog about this and talking about clearing up the skin, and we got like, I don't know, a zillion comments about, oh my God, what products to use. I didn't realize my skin was that gorgeous. Thank you. And having been a former acne sufferer, it's valuable to just continuously get that feedback, because, you know, when you've had acne, you're never quite sure if your skin looks good anymore. But now, after so many years, I think I'm getting the memo. All I use on my skin, for real, I use 2 things. I use an alpha hydroxy acid twice a week at night. I use something by Earth Science. It's called AB glycolic or hydroxy or something like that. I at Whole Foods, very gentle. Twice a week, that's it. I just wash my face at night. Other than that, I don't put anything else on it. Maybe sometimes a little witch hazel in the summer if I feel particularly oily. I am Mediterranean, so I self-lubricate. And then for moisturizer, the only thing that I use is pure aloe vera gel, which you buy in the sun care section at Whole Foods. It's a little tube. I buy 2 a year. They each cost $4. That's it. Aloe vera gel is amazing. It's anti-inflammatory, it's anti-wrinkle, it's natural cell turnover, and it is fantastic. Shrinks the pores. You don't need to get sucked into, once you know how like food works in the body, all the marketing about like lotions and potions, you kind of look at it like, that's not true. None of that's actually true what you're saying. The simpler, the more direct the ingredient, the better.
Makeup remover?
Makeup remover? What am I using? I mean, oh yes, I think it's another Earth Science natural, like a lotion, like a little, very gentle. Makeup, I use mineral makeup at Whole Foods, or Aveda mineral makeup. I use natural mascara. I think the brand is called Gabriel, things like that. Jane Iredale makeup, amazing. Lots of great organic makeup now. And there's a great website you can go to sort of check that out. Green Beauty, I think it's called.
Is Bare Minerals actually minerals? Like, it's actually good for your skin?
Uh,
You can sleep in it and all that stuff?
Bare Minerals has some chemicals in it that are endocrine disruptive. So that's why you should check the ingredients. You want mineral makeup that is without all of those chemicals. So that's why some of the ones at Whole Foods are better. I think one is called Mineral Fusion. Yeah, you use that one?
I've used it before.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
What about sunscreen? Do they have
I use Alba Botanical sunscreen. This is so much fun. I am a product lover, so I'm happy. I should do a whole thing on products. Alba Botanical, I use their SPF 50 face, and then they have like a really yummy enzyme pineapple. So while your sun's tanning, you're also exfoliating dead skin, which builds up in copious quantities while you're exposing yourself to the sun.
Do you wear that every day?
I don't wear sunscreen every day, personally. But I don't spend a lot of time out in the sun. And if I do, if I know I'm going to be out in the sun a lot, I either wear like a hat or I'll put some sunscreen on my face. But I try not to do it. But I think that's been a good thing because people on this book tour have been like, how old are you again? And I'm certainly it's a combination of, obviously what I'm eating and my hormonal health, but also how we take care of our skin.
What about insect repellents?
Oh my God, don't use it.
So, okay.
There's only, no.
You kind of can't live without it.
No, yes, you can. All you need to do is take 200 milligrams of vitamin B1, changes the scent of your skin. Mosquitoes won't even know you're there.
B1 or B1?
B as in boy, B1.
Take it every day?
No, just take it like an hour or two before you're going to go outside where the mosquitoes are going to eat you alive.
How much?
200
And so if I'm traveling somewhere,
B vitamins.
just take it once a day?
No, take it before you're going to be out where you're exposed a lot. So typically mosquitoes are not out all day long, right? They're only out at night when it's like starts to get cooler, right? Just pay attention to where your trouble zones are and try it around there. The stuff in bug spray is endocrine disruptive on a major, major scale. So you don't want to be spraying that on yourself or on children. Don't spray it on your kids. One last question, and then we're going to wrap. Yes?
So related to the B supplements, I kind of get this feeling sometimes that we weren't designed to have to take supplements.
You're right.
So with things like the B vitamins, what kind of foods can we get those quantities of B vitamins?
Complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates, eggs, and animal protein contain massive quantities of B vitamins. And so again, if you're someone who is, and we didn't talk about all the fad diets that are out there, vegan, paleo, fresh aeritarian, whatever you're doing, okay? I'm not dogmatic about food. To me, it's not so much about the trend or a theory. I'm only interested in what is the actual response that this food is creating in the body. And then I want to put that food in based on if my body needs that. So for example, if you're struggling to have cycles at all, right, and you're vegan, it might be really great if you were to introduce organic pasture-fed egg yolks into your diet. Why? They boost levels of progesterone in the body, which you might need to get your cycle back on track, right? And other B vitamins do other things, and I can go on and on, but you have to be willing to eat everything in the right quantity for you. And for women especially, I can't drive the healthy fats idea home enough, and eating more fat will actually, if you're dealing with all these hormonal problems, will help you lose weight faster, for sure. I'm so glad to have met all of you. I'm happy to sign some books now, and I would love to stay connected to you. We have free resources for you. In fact, as a special thank you for those who chose not to shop today and to come to this, I would love to gift all of you a free 30-minute consult with one of our FLO coaches. So if there's any further questions that you have, you can certainly get those answered, and all I'll just need is your email address, and we'll get you set up. Thank you so much for listening, for your great questions.